Joining us on the line right now, Bernard Kerik, former NYPD commissioner, author of a new book called From Jailer to Jailed, My Journey from Correction and Police Commissioner to Inmate. A man who served as the New York City Police Commissioner for many, many years, and a time in which there was a lot of admiration for that department and the way it was handling itself. Good day to have him here to talk about the situation in Baltimore. Mr. Kerik, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Larry.
This is Brian, actually, but okay, that's okay. No, Larry will be along in just a minute. Hey, listen, here's my question. A lot of questions about what happened in Baltimore and whether or not the police department responded in a strong enough fashion. From your perspective, as someone who has run a major city police department, what do you think about the way that was handled? I mean, clearly the officers were only following what orders were handed down from on high. Were those the right orders?
I don't think so initially. Watching from an outsider, and look, I don't have all the intelligence and the information that you may have down there, but it didn't seem like there was adequate resources. I think the National Guard should have been called out earlier. This was on the day of the funeral of Freddie Gray. They anticipated large protests. And sometimes, as we've seen in the past across the country, these things get out of hand, and they should have had more resources, I believe.
Was it a policy of containment? It seemed to me that what they were doing were just trying to contain the violence but not stop it.
Well, I think there's two issues. One, you've got to be prepared for the peaceful protest, and you can't give an inch. I heard the mayor's comments. She wanted to give distance, so they could, and I honestly believe, I hope she misspoke. But when people are getting out of hand, when they're starting to destroy property and burn and loot and I mean be extremely destructive, it's time that you don't distance. You don't give any distance for that. You have to stop that stuff. And I think the cops were ordered to back off, to be in a position where they didn't interfere, according to what I've heard, and I think it backfired, and it was devastating for the city. You're talking damage that will, some of these people will never recoup their businesses. Some people will go out of business as a result. I mean, it's devastating for the city of Baltimore, especially for the people that they made that their livelihood.
Bernard Kerik, you were a cop in New York at the time of the Crown Heights riots, weren't you, 1991? Yes, and I remember it very vividly, and I remember Mayor Dinkins coming under fire, rightly so in my opinion, where, the day after or 2 days after he had said, well, that first night of the riots, we just needed to let people blow off some steam. And, of course, blowing off some steam was violence and arson and looting. That brought us, I think that lost him the mayoral election against Rudy Giuliani a year later. In a situation like that, how much does the mayor have to say about what the police are to do? Who is the final word there?
Well, the mayor's the boss. That's the bottom line. And in that situation, let me see, I'm trying to remember now. It was either Lee Brown. I think it was Lee Brown. In fact, I don't even think he was in town. I think he was away at the time. I think Ray Kelly was the first deputy.
Oh, Ray Kelly, wow.
Yeah, Ray Kelly was the first deputy, and the mayor said, give them space, give them room, and what happens? They start, destroying property and damaging things and attacking people. And I can remember as a cop, we were told, just follow them, just follow. Don't interfere, don't touch them, just follow them. And I think that was really the wrong move because they devastated Crown Heights.
And so, as a cop, you're probably, you guys are chomping at the bit. You're sworn to uphold the law and keep the peace, and you want to protect the peaceful citizens of the city. That's where the tension really comes in. As you were watching things unfold, I'm wondering, were you feeling for the cops, or were you feeling for the elected officials there?
Well, no, you know what you're feeling. You're feeling for the community, because you're put in a position where I think the Baltimore cops were, where they're told to stand down, or they're told to create distance. I've been in that position where we've been told, don't do anything, stand down, just follow them. In the meantime, we're following them, and they're destroying everything in sight. and you're told not to do anything. So it's a bad time.
All right, the other side of the equation, and that is, whatever happened to this poor young man who died. We don't know the details on that, but based on what we have heard thus far, do you have any ideas about what might have happened to this guy once he came under police custody?
That's one of the things I think people have lost sight of. Mm-hmm. We've been so focused on the riots and so focused on the thugs and all the people out there doing this damage. Everybody's sort of forgotten about this kid that died. One, what happened to him? Why was he treated the way he was? And I have to tell you, I don't know any of the details other than what I've seen on the video and read. But that kid was in distress before he was put in the van. Initially we heard, something happened to him in the van. When those cops helped put him in the van, he was in severe distress. He could not walk. Whatever happened to him appears to have happened before he ever got in the van. And my question is, one, what happened? When did it happen? And two, and three, why didn't they call for medical assistance?
Yeah.
I think that is where the major mistake is. That kid should not have been moved. Once he appeared completely limp, where he could not move his legs. Why was he moved? Why wasn't an ambulance called at that point right there?
You hear a lot of the activists who go on cable news talking about some of the underlying issues, and one of them has to do with sort of what they're calling the incarceration culture that you see in inner cities right now. You see the statistics about the percentage of how many black men are actually incarcerated at some point in their lifetime. You've been writing about this. I mean, you used to be the corrections commissioner in New York in charge of the prisons, and then because of your own problems with the law, you ended up going to jail. So you have a pretty interesting perspective on it. What can be done?
Well, here's the problem. And this pertains to Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and other areas, in other minority areas, because I was with a lot of these guys out of Baltimore where I was. I was in Cumberland, Maryland, in a federal place. I have to tell you, I put a lot of bad people in prison, bad guys that did bad things, really bad things. And they got sentenced to 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, some life. But then when I got there and I ran into these kids, 19 years old, first time, low-level, nonviolent drug offense, 10 years, 15 years. And I have to tell you, I don't know who in Washington believes that's a benefit to society, but the reality is you take these young black men, you turn them into thugs, you give them a felony conviction, they spend 8.5 years being institutionalized, and you suck all the societal values out of them, and then they're completely doomed to failure for the rest of their natural life. And that is a lot of what we're seeing in these cities. If they're violent, they do bad things, okay. They have to be held accountable. But these first-time, low-level, nonviolent drug offenses, you can't destroy a kid's life forever, and that's what happens. I mean, we're creating, not only on the drug side, I was with commercial fishermen that caught too many fish. I was with a young kid.
They're thrown in jail.
Yeah, no, they're made convicted felons.
Yeah. We got to leave it there.
We got to leave it there. Clearly, a man who is, a perspective from both sides of the fence in this area.
Literally the fence.
Yeah, literally the fence.
Thank you so
Bernard
much,
Kerik, thank you so much.
Thank you.